Coming up in this week's episode of Front End Fire, Claude has leaked its own source code online, and Axios is the latest to get hacked in the great NPM supply chain attacks. It's a jam-packed episode, so let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Front End Fire podcast, the weekly web development podcast that helps you stay up to date with the latest and the greatest in the front end world. I'm your host today, Paige Niedringhaus, and I am joined by my co-host, TJ Van Tol.
Hey everybody.
And our third co-host, Jack Harrington, is unfortunately not available to record with us, but he will be back next week, so you've just got TJ and I giving you the news.
That's okay, though. There's been enough security issues this week, I think, to get us through.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have lots to talk about with Anthropic, with Axios, and more. So let's talk about the news. All right. I know that typically the host of the show goes last with their news, but I feel like I want to start first because it's kind of a big one. This week, Anthropic accidentally leaked Claude's source code to everybody on the internet.
Yeah, that they did. Well, Claude Code, not Claude, but yes.
Yes, Claude Code. The thing that we all know, love, and probably use. All 512,000 lines of source code were linked back in an NPM package where they left the source map in when it was published instead of having it removed. And yeah, not great. Everybody jumped on that immediately. There were so many repos that spun up on Facebook with the code. And even though Anthropic and GitHub both have tried to enforce takedowns, once it's out there, you can't undo it.
Yeah, it's like the classic internet. Because I was wondering exactly how this happened when I first heard the news. And it sounds like the source maps just pointed at the full source code that they had up on Cloudflare or whatever, and that it was only up for a handful of minutes or whatever, but that was plenty for the internet to get a full copy of it. And then at that point, there's no taking that back.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened, is that there was a source map in there that pointed back to all of their code, all of their prompts, all of their agents and tools, and, just on and on and on, all their source code. And it didn't get removed before it got published. And because the internet never forgets, that will forever be there somewhere. So yeah, it happened. I think the more interesting thing, though, is what people have found as they've been going through the code, because everybody, including competitors, would be very interested to see exactly how they've kind of stitched all of Claude's functionality together, because it is very good. It is kind of the de facto if you're going to do coding for a lot of folks, myself included. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff that is either coming or looks like it's coming soon. And that's actually what I wanted to cover in here.
I'm very curious because I have not heard this.
There's a lot of interesting stuff, but one of the more interesting ones that kind of stood out is that there is a thing called Kairos, Kairos, which is a background daemon that is apparently even around when Claude Code is closed, and it will be regularly checking on your computer to see if it can be proactive for a user. So it sounds a lot like how OpenClaw kind of is just hanging around in the background if you're running it, waiting for things to do or looking for ways that it can help. But the thing that's interesting about Kairos, or that according to people who have looked at the source code, is that it makes a picture of the user's behavior over time via a memory system. So it understands how you interact with it, what kind of problems you're asking it to solve, what you're talking with it about, what you ask it not to do in the future, and it's going to try to remember all of this stuff so that it can be, a better personal assistant for you.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's, for now, since we haven't heard of this as an official feature or anything, I wonder if it's just like in an intel gathering type of stage, like analytics, trying to understand what people are doing to see if there's something that it might be useful to do in the background that they haven't quite unveiled yet. Maybe they're just gathering analytics either on a certain group of people or on all of us. It's hard to say. I'm sure we opted into something when we signed the terms of use when we when we downloaded the thing.
I'm sure we did too. And yeah, I don't know when this is due to be released or if it's due to be released, but it's definitely one of those things that would freak people out if they knew it was happening, and probably does for a lot of people now that they know that source code is there.
But like a lot of security things, you can see the creepiness aspect of this, but you could also see the potential of this.
Hmm.
That if there are things that you want Claude to maybe jump in on, there's some potentially cool things to automate. Like if, for example, if Claude could see that a Jira ticket came in, maybe it takes a stab at it and puts a PR in while you're away from your computer. There's a number of different things that this could actually be useful for as well, and also
Yeah.
a little bit creepy too.
Another one that was interesting is that there is something called undercover mode, which instructs Claude to contribute to open source repos without revealing that it's an AI, or sharing that sharing any Anthropic potential info, like names of models or internal, programs or things that others outside of Anthropic should not be aware of.
Interesting. The-
Uh-huh.
I imagine this is not. This is another one that's just either behind a flag or not activated. Right? We're not secretly running undercover mode. I have to imagine.
As far as we know, they're not. I think it was either commented out, or it was feature flagged so that it wasn't running, but it exists, which is also a little bit, ugh.
Yeah. At the same time, though,
So,
if I think about software that I've been a part of, there are times where people would find certain things and make assumptions that were completely unfounded. Like
mhm,
maybe it's a mode that they're just using for some internal purposes and they're just testing some idea, but it's not something that's on for the general public because we're just looking at their source code without any context whatsoever. We just have the
mhm,
files, so we don't know what's going on with a roadmap or what they're doing. We're just kind of trying to sleuth it together from the source that we now have.
we are, exactly. That's absolutely it. It is a little bit weird, though, that they would give it instructions like, "Don't say that you're co-authored by an AI agent," or, you know, those kind of
Yeah.
general things that we as people or human reviewers might want to know.
I yeah, but see, like that just seems like a weird feature that they'd ever announce to people. This
Mm,
almost seems like more, I don't know, where my brain first went is that they're just trying to see for just research purposes, can they turn Claude Code into just anonymous contributor and gauge
mhm.
success rates, just like an experiment they're running, rather than a feature that they ever intend for average developers to use. But again, this wild speculation because we really have no idea.
And then the last thing that was interesting, but this was also a little bit cuter, is that there are ASCII buddies that they have created. So
I love this.
imagine a little animal that's like Clippy, or if you use the VS Code Pets extension, it's just like a little cute little animal that runs around in your editor, or in this case, in your terminal, and just kind of sits beside the user's input box, makes comments occasionally with a speech bubble. And it seems like they're just cute little additions. There's different species that can be generated, like an axolotl was one of the ones that was mentioned, or a cat. Different levels of rarity. It kind of sounds like Pokemon or Tamagotchis, where you just kind of collect them, or you get, if you're lucky, you get a super rare one that doesn't come up very often. But it just sounds more cute than anything else. But I would totally go for it. At least try it out.
Oh, I totally want this. I think I have so the VS Code Pets extension. If you've not used it before, is just a fun thing to download.
Mhm.
It's somebody put a surprising amount of time and effort into this, where you can create little animal friends that live in this tiny little window within your VS Code. And I installed this. I think we brought this up on the show, but multiple years ago at some point, and I still have it installed. I still see in the extensions menu when it updates and such, and I have
Mhm.
this little duck that runs around, and it just makes me happy. But the VS Code Pets thing is more just passive. It's just these pets that live in the corner. It sounds like this is, at least from what how you're describing it, it's more Clippy style, where it's actually a friend that's interacting with you.
Yeah,
And I'm also here to try that. I'm
sure. I want to see what it's going to say. Like, is it going to make actual relevant comments, or is it just going to say, it loves you and you're doing a great job and it's very happy to be there?
right, because well, thinking back to Clippy, because I remember using Clippy way back in the day in Word, and the reason Clippy is a joke and a meme and such is that not because Clippy was annoying. It was a little bit annoying, but it's more that it was just bad. Like
Yeah.
Clippy would give you suggestions. Its suggestions were horrible. You'd open up
Hmm.
Word to work on like a homework essay or something like that, and Clippy would pop up and say, "Do you want to help write a 8 by 11 letter in this template?" And you're like, "No, Clippy, I'm here to work on my World War II essay. Like you should take some hints here." Whereas I feel like nowadays with modern AI, that sort of little character could be way more intelligent and helpful potentially
Hmm.
than old school Clippy was. So I think this has some potential. It definitely has the potential to be annoying, but presumably, if they did release this, they would make it configurable. So it could be something you could play with and then turn off if it really starts to annoy
Yeah,
you.
hopefully. But yeah, it's another one where it's just like there's some lighter hearted elements that seem to have been added to the code base recently as well. So who knows when that's coming? We don't know when any of this is coming or if it's even coming in the way that we might think it is by reading the code, but it is definitely interesting and there's a lot to learn if you are interested in actually delving through all of this 512,000 lines of JavaScript.
I do think overall that this probably actually isn't that big of a deal. I mean, for Anthropic, Claude Code is an important product for them, but it's really important because it's just it's like a harness or a way of interacting with their model itself. So
Mhm.
while there's some importance to the source of Claude Code, this isn't like their trade secrets. This isn't anything super hypersensitive. Obviously, they didn't want this to leak. Otherwise, they would have just open sourced it and made it available to everybody. But I don't really see this being that big of a deal. It's not like we're going to learn a ton about how exactly the magic behind Claude Code. I mean, if I were working at a competitor of Claude Code, I would 100% be looking through this to see what I
Mhm.
can learn and such. But I really, at the end of the day, don't think this is that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think that you're probably right. Like if you are an engineer working at OpenAI or Windsurf or, insert AI
Cursor,
company
yeah.
here, Cursor, yeah, it probably does give you some new ideas or some new ways to structure prompts or add tools or things like that. But for the rest of us who are just using it and enjoying it, we're just going to keep paying our however many dollars per month to use it and take advantage of the features when they become available and become known to us.
Yep. And I don't know, we'll have fun dreaming about ASCII friends that can help us write our code.
Yeah, if anything, this has been another, bit of good press or press at least for Anthropic and for Claude Code. So maybe people who weren't as aware of it are now and will be giving it a try.
Yeah, because this isn't like a malicious story. This is just presumably some dev made some mistake where they left one flag on that should have been dev only
Yep.
and accidentally released it with that. But this is not like malicious. This is just an accident, basically.
Hmm. All right. TJ, I think you've got more security news to share.
Yeah, well, my news is malicious because there was a pretty big hack that happened this week around the Axios package. Which, if you've not used Axios, it is still the JavaScript ecosystem's most popular HTTP client. It's
Hmm.
most commonly used in Node. It's just historically been a really, really robust way of performing HTTP calls. I've used it on all sorts of projects. I have work
Yeah.
projects that are using it in production. A lot of other people do as well. Well, on March 30th, so a few days ago as we record this, just to read from this story, Axios was weaponized as a delivery vehicle for a cross-platform remote access Trojan. the attacker hijacked the lead maintainer of Axios' NPM account, published two poisoned versions across both the 1.x and legacy 0.x release branches within 39 minutes of each other, and injected a phantom dependency whose sole purpose was to deploy persistent malware on macOS, Windows, and Linux. The malware then self-destructed after execution, replacing its own evidence with a clean decoy. So essentially, first of all, the big thing that opened this up is they compromised the lead maintainer's account. Basically, they somehow got access to a security token, a token of his that he had rights to publish packages with. And the updated versions they pushed where they created this new JavaScript package named plain-crypto-js, way to sound, not suspicious at all. They published that, and then they waited for a while because they were trying to bypass, because a lot of security tools consider new packages as unsafe for very good reason, and especially in this case. They waited a little while, and then they used their compromised token to publish an update of Axios to just have a new dependency on this new package. And they didn't even do anything with it because they were just relying on because it was listed as a dependency in the package.json, it would get installed, and its post-install script would run. And that's where the malicious stuff would actually go down. Now, the good news here is that this was detected pretty darn quickly. The odds that you got affected by this are very low because this was pulled. A lot of these, because these packages were new and detected pretty quickly, NPM took down these packages pretty immediately. So odds are you did not hit this in any way. But it is still very scary because of the scale of this. This is a pretty popular package. And also, it bypassed a lot of what we've talked about on this show for the last handful of months. If you're a longtime listener, is all the things that GitHub and NPM have been doing to try to make this exact sort of thing less possible. And it was kind of all bypassed by sort of human or social engineering because somehow they got access to a token onto his account, and that still essentially acted as the keys to the kingdom that allow them to package this updated version.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you use Axios, or really if you use anything from the NPM ecosystem, lock down your dependencies. That's the first and foremost thing, is don't have the carrot, don't have anything that can automatically update. Keep it from doing that. Lock it to a particular version. Just don't open yourself up to this.
Well, and you make sure you use package lock files as well, because this one's especially troublesome because since a lot of tools also depend on Axios, there's chances you could bring this in because Axios was a dependency of a dependency. And really the only way to prevent against that is if you have a lock file that you use in all of your build, your CI processes and whatnot. You'll never pluck in a new version. You'll just get whatever you did the last time you updated your dependencies. So yeah, specific versions, use lock files, and hope for the best, I guess, is like where we're at with all of this.
Yeah, that was such a shame though, because Axios, like you said, has been around forever. It's been such a good package for all HTTP calls because it does so much more than, or it did so much more, I should say, than the traditional web fetch. It's just been around forever and it's been rock solid. So this really is a shame.
And this is another one where I feel bad for the maintainer because obviously the maintainer is just thanklessly keeping this tool running and you become a target nowadays because you have a package that has such a wide distribution. And it sounds like, so I looked into this a little bit because I was also curious how this happened, how this bypassed some of the things that Node and NPM have been doing. And so NPM is moving towards what's called trusted publishing, which is basically moves away from having tokens in the first place. But it sounds like the Axios project was not participating in this because they're not requiring that people do this quite yet. So the maintainer still did have a token that was still active on their computer, which kind of exposed them to this. So that's one part of this. And then the second part is I continue to think that the biggest security hole in the entire JavaScript ecosystem is these post-install scripts, because it's
Yes.
still, I think, wild to me that if you install a package from Node, it has the ability to just basically just completely run a script in Bash,
Hmm.
which is wild because these scripts can do potentially just about anything. And we've covered on this show before, so Dino doesn't run post-install scripts by default, and they're kind of the one exception in this space. Both Node and both npm and Bun do it, and they do it because there's still a lot of packages that just depend on that. They use the post-install script to do some sort of setup or whatever the case may be, because it genuinely is a useful tool. But it just opens up so many bad things like exactly this that could happen.
Yeah. And I don't know. We still don't really have a good answer. Trusted publishing was rolled out so quickly that there's a lot of just publishing setups that don't work with it, which is probably why the Axios maintainer wasn't using it. I know that they're trying to expand it, but there's just so many other workflows that it just doesn't support yet.
And it's a hassle. I mean, if you're a busy person, like
Yeah.
both of us have had npm packages. We don't have anything near the scale of Axios that we maintain. But the idea of like, let's take a day to shore up our security models, it's never going to be at the top of anybody's list. It maybe it should be, but it just isn't, because it's not a fun thing to work on. We have things that we need to get done both in life and in work and such. And so I totally understand from the maintainer's perspective how this could have happened, and it just kind of sucks.
It does.
Oh, the one other little small piece of news is that apparently, so I found this article that was put out by Google. So Google apparently runs what they call the Google Threat Intelligence Group, or the GTIG, and they have attributed this activity to UNC 1069, a financially motivated North Korea Nexus threat actor active since at least 2018. And they detected this because the use of something they detected in the actual what the actual payload of this attack, that is, it was apparently similar to versions that they've used in previous attacks, and it overlaps with infrastructure that this group has used before in past activities. So apparently this is like I don't know, state sponsored and
Hmm.
type of hack, which isn't surprising um, given the scale of it. But I don't know, just a fascinating detail to this, that like nation states are attacking the JavaScript ecosystem at this point just because of the potential.
I know. Isn't that wild that countries are concerned with this, or that they're putting effort towards this?
Yeah, I don't think, if you would have told me a few years ago that Axios and North Korea would be in the same sentence that we'd be covering, I don't think I would have believed you. But here we are.
All right, well, I think that's our main news, but we still have a few little lightning news bits, so let's get into that. All right, so for lightning news this week, we have a new update on Redwood SDK. We talked about this several episodes ago. There was kind of a split recently with Redwood, where it was doing Redwood.js, which was kind of the standard Redwood that we had talked about in the past, and Redwood SDK, which is going towards more of a futuristic AI functional. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, but it was more nuanced, I guess, is the best way to put it. So it has just reached 1.0, and what you can expect with Redwood SDK is that it has gone full Cloudflare, just like Void has, just like Vite has. Cloudflare just seems to keep gobbling up all of the other frameworks and JavaScript focused initiatives out there today. So with Redwood.js, it is a server-first React SDK that is built entirely on Cloudflare. So there's no hidden magic, according to them. There's no code gen. There's no implied routing. There's no transpilation side effects. Really, what you see is what you get, which a lot of the frameworks today are doing kind of magic behind the scenes. Next.js is well known for this, especially. So Redwood's just kind of putting it out there that exactly what you write is what you're going to see running in production. It is RSC out of the box, so there is no REST API layer required. It has full Cloudflare integration, so you get workers, you get D1 and D2, you get queues, you get AI, you have your local dev environment via Miniflare, which is Cloudflare's way of running, like if you run Bun or run Dino or something, you can do local development that is more similar to that, which is all just kind of locked in with Cloudflare. So if you're looking for a better developer experience where you have all this just kind of at your disposal out of the box, then maybe this is a good thing for you. And the only other kind of really big highlight is that they have a used sync state feature, which is real-time syncing across different clients. So all of your clients are connected, and then Cloudflare uses its durable objects. So there's no WebSockets, no pub subs, no third-party services to actually keep those clients up to date, which is actually pretty cool and a big pain point for a lot of people up until now.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. I mean, for all the people that complain about Next being so coupled to Vercel, people also do really like it. A lot of people use it. And so having an offering that's super coupled to Cloudflare, and lots of people like Cloudflare and what it does and has really robust server ecosystem, I think it has some serious potential. We'll just have to see. It's just super hard for any new JavaScript thing to stand out. But they've got as good a chance as any by tying their, what's the phrase, tying their sails to Cloudflare, or
yeah, they're hitching their wagon to Cloudflare's star.
Yes, hitching their wagon is what I was looking for.
I mean, Void is doing kind of the same thing, though. They're also betting big on Cloudflare, and for the same reasons. They're like, you get all of this stuff out of the box, and as long as you don't mind being locked in, which, like you said, people are doing it with Vercel already, you get a really good developer experience. You can spin up databases, you can do hosting, you can do all this stuff just if they lock in. So that's what they're going to do.
And usually, for the most part, this is an oversimplification, but usually that lock-in makes it easier to get started, and you really only start to regret it if you do, when you really want to scale, and then being restricted can be a problem. The build can sometimes potentially be a problem. But for developer experience and ease of getting up, usually these approaches are quite nice.
Mm-hmm. And Cloudflare has been around for ages. They have been a pretty good steward and contributor to the web in general. So, give your money to them, give your money to Vercel. You decide what's your preference.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So, good luck to Redwood SDK. We wish them the best. Hopefully it'll catch on. And with that, I think that it's time to go on to what's making us happy.
Let's do it.
Okay, TJ, what is making you happy this week?
So I'm just coming back from a spring break trip to Minneapolis, and we went there partially because my kids have been obsessed with the idea of the Mall of America since they were really, really little. And so we finally thought, like, okay, let's do this. Let's take them there. Let's give them the full experience. And it was a lot of fun. But to me, the highlight of the trip was this place called Activate. And to try to describe it, it's basically, so it's a business. It's in the Mall of America, but it's everywhere. There's something like 50 some locations throughout the U.S., and then there's a bunch of international locations as well. And the place is divided into, once you pay and you go back, there's something like 10 different rooms. And each of these rooms are basically like, I guess like mini games would be the best I could describe it. So for example, the easiest game to understand is there was a basketball room that was just called Hoops. And so how it would work is you would go with 2 to 4 people. So you have to play in a group. And then everybody has a wristband. So for the basketball game, you'd go and you'd scan in. And there'd be this little screen that would tell you which variation of the game do you want to play. So they have all different ways to play in each different room, But the basic one is, as you might imagine, just make as many hoops as you can in the time interval. But each room in each mode has levels. So for example, level 1, you might have to make 50 baskets in 90 seconds, something like that. But then level 2, you might have to make, the numbers go up, timer goes down, whatever the case may be, all the way up to level 10. And what's cool is that we could have spent days in this place, because the basketball one was the simplest one, but the things that were truly unique were they had a laser room that was very Mission Impossible style, where level 1 was very easy, right? You just had to kind of step over some lasers. But by level 4, which is as far as we got, you really did feel like you were Mission Impossible style, like you were walking out of the jewelry store or whatever. And I was very bad at that. The other one that was fun, our favorite room was one called the Grid. And so basically it was a big room that was divided into a grid. There were small little squares on the ground. And then they would put up a color, say like red. And then everybody would have to find, so there were 3 of us playing. And so there'd be 3 red squares in this entire thing. And then after 5 seconds, all 3 of us would have to be standing on one of those red squares. And then like all of the games there, it would start super easy, right? Like level 1, you'd have like 10 seconds. You could walk over. It'd be no big deal. And then by the time that's the one we made it the furthest, we got up to trying level 9. And at that point, you're at like full alert. You're in a squat position. You're ready to dart. You're calling out things to your the people you're playing with. And we couldn't do it. I don't know like what sort of superhuman reflexes are required to get to the end of that one, but just overall, I mean, it was just so fun. I mean, it's basically just like Mario Party style mini games, but in real life. And we didn't even scratch the surface of what you could do, because all these rooms had like 7 different modes to play in. You could play cooperative, which is most of what we did, or competitive. So you could just play against each other in these rooms as well. And I don't know, it was a blast. So if there's one in your area, definitely recommend checking out, especially if you have like kids or like semi-athletic kids, those like video game liking kids. I think that's their prime clientele.
That sounds really fun, actually. I'm going to have to look and see if there's one nearby somewhere.
I have to imagine there is, because there's like 3 in Chicago. There's 1 in Michigan.
Okay.
So knowing Atlanta, there's got to be at least one somewhere around. So if you can get like a group of 4 people, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. All right. Well, what's making me happy this week is a podcast recommendation that I have, and it is called The Idiot, from the Serial Productions team, who is now part of the New York Times, but used to be just Serial by themselves. Yeah. So if you're familiar at all with Serial, it's been a while since they came out and had their debut, but it was just like the first in true crime serialized episodes that built on top of one another, and it was wildly popular in the first season especially. And they got acquired by the New York Times, and they've since released several seasons since then, but the newest season just dropped, and it's 5 episodes, and it's the same thing. It's really good storytelling. This one is about a reporter who is talking about his cousin, who hired a hitman to try and kill the cousin's wife. And it spans continents. It spans the U.S. and Russia and Africa, and it's definitely a great listen especially if you like just listening to podcasts on walks or exercise or anything like that. It's very fun to listen to. It's a good story. It's great reporting.
Well, they're the ones who, what's the previous podcast that they put out? Because you recommended it on this show. It was something related to women's health and pain, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But
I think that might have been The Replacements.
But anyways, I listened to that one. I did not listen to their original, the OG Serial podcast, but listening to The Replacements was just, the production value is world class. I mean, there's a reason why they became so popular. The storytelling is fantastic. So I think at this point I'm a big enough fan. I'll listen to whatever they put out. So I'll definitely put this on my list.
Yeah, and it's a fairly quick listen. It's 5 episodes. I think no episode is longer than an hour tops, and most are shorter. So yeah, it's just something that you could throw on while you're, doing errands or doing whatever. But the storytelling, like TJ said, it's just top notch. It really keeps you in the grip of like what's going to happen next. So I enjoyed it for sure. I got through it in a weekend. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully now that they're a part of the New York Times, which they were for their previous one as well, just the fact that they're putting these out more often hopefully means they
Mhm.
now have some budget and some staff to crank these out a little bit more because they're very good at what they do.
Yeah. So if you need something else to listen to besides our podcast, I would check them out. All right. Well, I think that that's going to wrap us up for this week. Thanks everybody to listening to us. You can find us online. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky. We have our Discord, which is probably the most populated of all of those channels. We have some good conversations in there. So thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.